If you enjoy stuffed peppers and Mediterranean food, I have the perfect mashup for you here. These are my Mediterranean stuffed peppers, and they are delicious and easy to come together. And you'll get a bonus recipe for my tzatziki sauce. So if you're interested in how these are made, stick around because it's coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I am a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now today is one of mine. I just came up with it last week. I had some things on hand and decided to throw them all together, and voila, I made Mediterranean stuffed peppers. Now, I really like them. Paul was a little on the fence at first because when he sees a stuffed pepper, he's expecting something tomatoey and meaty and rice, whatever. He has a certain expectation in his head. This did not meet that expectation, so it kind of threw him off, but he did say that they were good, that he enjoyed them. It was just getting his mind wrapped around what he was eating as opposed to what he thought he was eating. And that's one of the things I always tell you, don't compare foods. Don't compare this to a real stuffed pepper, a real stuffed pepper. This has Mediterranean flavors. It does have some tomatoes, but it does not have a tomato sauce. Instead, what I ended up using was a tzatziki sauce. And I had bought it at the store. It was fairly low in bites and points, so I didn't mind using it. But then I thought, I know I can come up with one that's better on bites and points because I will know what's in it. That's why you do not see any peppers or any meat or anything just yet, because the first thing, you're getting a bonus recipe. We're gonna make my tzatziki sauce. So let's go over the ingredients. I have here 1 cup of non-fat Greek yogurt. Here I have my cucumber. Now I shredded it, as I'll show you with some B-roll, as they say. I shredded it on the small edge of the grater. You want this as fine as you can get it. And I measured out about 3/4 of a cup. Then I put it onto a towel. I rolled that up, took it over to the sink, and I squeezed as much liquid out as I can. So that's why you'll see here, it's got very little liquid left. There is still some, but it's not as liquid as a typical cucumber. So that's 3/4 of a cup of finely shredded cucumber, drained of all of its juice. I have here, speaking of juice, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and 1.5 teaspoons of dried dill, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of minced garlic, and I have here 1 teaspoon of olive oil. You can leave the olive oil out, but it really doesn't do much to the bites and points until you've had like 4 servings. It gives it a nice silky texture. So I'm adding just 1 teaspoon of olive oil. So to make our tzatziki sauce, it's relatively easy. Just gonna take our yogurt, put in everything else. I'm gonna stir in the cucumber a little bit first before I add the rest of the ingredients, just to get that in there a little bit. The lemon juice, dried dill, the garlic, the olive oil, and the salt. And then I'm going to take my whisk, scrape off anything stuck to my spatula here, and just give this a good whisk together. First, I'm gonna mash it down so I don't end up squirting all the lemon juice out of the bowl, which if I just started swinging it around like this, I did get a little bit, but luckily my thumb caught it. But you just want to whisk this together. Now, if you didn't want to use dry dill, you could use fresh dill in here. You would just bump it up by double and do 1 tablespoon of fresh dill. But that's all there is to it. So I'm going to give this a taste. set it aside, and bring in the rest of our ingredients for our stuffed peppers. Okay, so for our stuffed peppers, I have here a red pepper and a green pepper that I've split in half. I cut mine down the middle. I know some people just cut the tops off and put the filling in that way. You could do it with them standing up if you prefer. I don't usually do it that way, so I'm not sure how long it would cook. I wouldn't think it would be much longer than the way I'm doing it. I prefer to cut them through the middle, split them in half, take out the stem part and clean out the ribs and seeds. That's my preference, and that's how I calculated it. I calculated this typically for Paul and I. This is one meal. We'll each have an entire pepper with the filling. But I did also calculate it for a serving of 4 in case you wanted to do it just half of a pepper. You have an option. Now I have some cooking spray. I also have here 3/4 of a cup of our tzatziki sauce, and the whole batch made about 1.25 cups. I figure that serves about roughly 2 generous tablespoons. And that's how I calculated the bites and points, is by separating that out into 8 servings. Now with what's left, you can use it in pita, you can use it in a salad, you could use it with some vegetables, you can dip some crackers in it. You can use this as a dip. I did a collab this past Tuesday where we were talking about summer tips for healthy weight loss, and one of mine was to change out the dips. This would be a great dip to bring to a gathering. It's refreshing from that cool cucumber, but it's also, as you'll see later, very low in bites and calories. Moving on from there, I have here 8 ounces of ground chicken. Now I ground it myself because it's much cheaper that way. And I did do a video on how to grind your own meat, so that if you want to do ground chicken, ground pork, what have you, you can do it at home much more cheaply. And I will insert a card here as well as link that down in the description box. I have here 1 cup of riced cauliflower. I didn't buy it. I just took some cauliflower and chopped it up relatively finely. You can see it's not precise rice pieces, but it doesn't have to be too small of a piece. You could use the pre-cut stuff, you could use the frozen, you could even use rice or couscous or whatever you wanted in its place. But because I'm trying to keep the bites and points down, I'm using the cauliflower. I have here 1/2 cup of chopped tomato. You can use cherry tomatoes, you could use plum tomatoes, you can use anything. You're just going to get about 1/2 cup of that. I have here 1/4 cup of chopped mixed red and green peppers. I have 1/4 cup of onion chopped. I have a tablespoon of minced garlic, 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Here I have fat-free feta. Try saying that 3 times fast, especially with this jaw. I couldn't find my Athenos, which I usually prefer because that's the lowest in bites and points. This is the President. We have 3 ounces of that here, which is about half of that container, 6-ounce container. Here I have 3/4 of a cup of fat-free mozzarella. I have it divided. I have 1/2 cup here that's gonna go on the top, and 1/4 cup here that's gonna go inside. Okay, so I have water over here that was boiling. I'm gonna get that boiling again for my peppers. Gonna move a few things around and we will get started. Okay, so for the peppers, the water is boiling. Just gonna add a pinch of salt just to get a little salt into the pepper itself. And then I'm just going to drop those in. Now, Paul and I like our peppers a little on the softer side. So I'm gonna boil these for about 5-6 minutes until they get soft enough for me. If you prefer your peppers a little more firm, you can do 2 to 3 minutes. So I'm gonna turn that down a smidge, let this boil for 5 or 6 minutes, and I will be back. All right, so it's been about 5 minutes. As they boil, I do push them down and angle them, shift them around a little bit, because as they float, certain corners will pop up and I just want them all turned down. Speaking of turning down, I'm going to turn that off. Now when I take mine out, I'm going to put them in the pan that I'm going to use. But I'm going to put them in upside down. And the reason I'm doing that, it will allow them to continue to steam and soften. If you didn't want them any softer than this, you could just leave them upright like this, and then they wouldn't continue to steam. But as I said, we like them soft, so I am turning them upside down, let that steam get trapped in there and help soften them a little bit more. So those are ready. Let me move this water out of my way and bring in my pan. Now, I did forget an ingredient. It was sitting in there all by itself at a table. I have a half a cup of chickpeas, drained and rinsed chickpeas. Couldn't be a Mediterranean dish without some chickpeas, right? It will be written up in the recipe that the chickpeas are there. I just forgot them over on the table, but I at least found them. All right, so this is going back on heat. I'm gonna put this on a medium high and spray the pan with some cooking spray. And then I'm going to add in the onions and the peppers. Now these could be frozen. I just couldn't find any, so I ended up getting some extra pepper. So I'm gonna cook this in here and then we will move on. Okay, it's been about 2 or 3 minutes. The onions and peppers are slightly starting to get a little color. So now I'm gonna add in the cauliflower rice and spread that out. You don't wanna add it too soon because it cooks fairly quickly in its riced form. So I didn't want to put it in too soon with the peppers and onions because I'm not looking for it to get browned. I just want it to soften up a bit. So I'm gonna let that sit for about another 2 or 3 minutes and we'll move on. Okay, the cauliflower rice has been in there for a few minutes. I'm now, if I don't spill everything all over the place, going to add in the garlic and just stir that through. Still does that get fragrant. It only takes about 30 seconds or so. So you just want to heat that through for a few seconds. Now I'm going to push everything that's in here off to the side. And I'm going to spray a little bit more cooking spray because our chicken is about to go in. So in goes the chicken. As I said, it's only 8 ounces in there. And the Italian seasoning, the salt, and the pepper. And I'm going to stir that around, get that mixed in. And you just want this to start to cook through. So that's going to take maybe about 5-6 minutes, and I will be right back. Okay, so it's been about 4 or 5 minutes, and the chicken looks like it's just about there. So I'm going to add in the chickpeas and the tomatoes and just stir those through to let them warm up a little bit. Oh, I know what I forgot. I did forget something that I did put in the other version, and I'm going to get that right now. Okay, here is the missing ingredients. I forgot the olives. I was wondering why it didn't look as colorful as it did before. I have 12 Kalamata olives, and I'm just going to cut them in half lengthwise and then half across so that each olive is in 4 pieces. So that way it'll spread a little bit throughout the dish. You get a little flavor of that throughout. So I'm going to add that in now and stir that through to let that warm up. I'm going to turn it down to medium at this point, and I'm going to add in the feta, 1/4 cup of mozzarella. Stir that through, and we're going to add in our tzatziki. You do not want to add this while it's too hot. That's why we turn down the heat at this point, is because you want this to go in and get warmed up, but you don't want it to curdle. And if you add dairy products into too high of a heat, they can curdle. So this looks like it's holding together much better than when I first made it. I think it's partly the cheese and partly because I could use a little more tzatziki because I'd made a lower bite version. All right, so let me heat that up a little bit more. I'm going to bring in the peppers, the cheese, and we're gonna get this ready for the oven. Be right back. Okay, so this is heated up just for a minute or so. I'm gonna bring this a little closer to my peppers. Now you don't need to do a red and a green. I was actually going to originally do just red, but Paul thought visually it might look nice if I had a red and a green. So you can use just red, you can use just green, you can use yellow. It's your call. But now we're just going to fill these. I'm going to put some in each and then see how far I can spread this out. And invariably I get some that does not go in, such as my lot in life. Okay, so that was the first pass. Now I'm going to go through and just mound them up a bit more because we like our peppers nice and full. If you prefer them flatter, you can easily do that and then save the rest for like a pita, have that for a lunch. We like them fairly substantial so that we feel like we are actually eating well and not skimping and dieting. So that looks pretty good. And it'll depend on the size of your peppers. If they're a little smaller, you may be able to get more peppers. Or, as I said, you can use the rest of the filling in a pita for a lunch. That'd be great. Now we're going to sprinkle. It's going to be about 2 tablespoons of the fat-free mozzarella over each one. And you may want to, depending on your pan, spray it before you put the peppers in, so that way if any of this cheese does melt and get stuck to your pan, you don't have to worry about it as much. But there we go. And the secret trick, whenever you're using fat-free cheese, give it a little spray of cooking spray. That way the fats in the cooking spray will help it to melt more evenly. Because a lot of times you'll see when you melt fat-free cheese just on its own, it kind of holds its shape and just looks like strings that have been cooked. This will get it to melt. Now I have my oven preheated at 375 degrees. These are going to go in for about 15 to 20 minutes. For the last couple of minutes, I'm going to put it on broil if I don't feel that the tops have gotten dark enough. Usually I'll broil it for about 2 to 3 minutes, watching it the whole time so that I can make sure that they don't burn. Because if you're broiling something and you look away for a minute, it can go from perfect to burnt pretty quickly. So 375 for 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'm going to broil about 2 to 3 minutes. And I'll be back to show you what they look like. Okay, there you have it, my Mediterranean stuffed peppers. They were in there about 15 minutes and they were under the broiler for just about 2, just to get a little brown on that cheese, but absolutely delicious. I can't wait to dig in. Now here I have what's left of the tzatziki sauce. It's about a half a cup left. As I said, each portion would be a generous 2 tablespoons. So you got 2 recipes for the price of 1, tzatziki sauce and my Mediterranean stuffed peppers. Now for the tzatziki sauce, as I said, this would make 8 generous 2 tablespoon servings. And you can have up to 3 servings, which would be 6 tablespoons for 0 bites or 0 blue points. I'm on the Healthi Better Balance plan, which is equivalent to the old WW Blue plan. So that's what I'm basing this off of. Now, for each serving, if you are following calories, 1 serving would be just 24 calories. And if you're following macros, the fat would be 0.7 grams, the carbs would be 1.6 grams, the fiber would be 0.1 grams, and the protein would be 3 grams. And that is for 2 generous tablespoons of the tzatziki sauce. And as I said, you can use it as a dip, you can use it on a sandwich, and hamburger. I love it on a hamburger, especially a chicken burger. It gives it a nice Mediterranean feel. But that's the tzatziki sauce. For our peppers, as I said, Paul and I do 2 halves of a pepper each. Nice substantial dinner. But you could do it as a single half pepper. So if you were going to do this as a serving for 4, this would only be 2 bites or 2 blue points. And if you're following calories, the calories would be 272. And if you're following macros, the fat would be 6.2 grams. The carbs would be 22.6 grams. The fiber would be 5.4 grams. And the protein would be 32.7 grams. And again, that's for serving 4, so 1/2 of a pepper per serving. If you're being generous, like Paul and I like to do, each of these would only be 3 bites. So just 1 more bite for the extra pepper. And if you are following calories, the calories for 2 would be 545 calories. And if you're following macros, the fat would be 12.4 grams. The carbs would be 45.3 grams. The fiber would be 10.7 grams. And the protein would be 65.3 grams. And again, that's serving 2. So you each would get 2 peppers. If you're into meal planning, you could meal plan these as your lunch and just have 1/2 of a pepper for lunch each day. But there you have them, my Mediterranean stuffed peppers and an additional recipe of my tzatziki sauce. Now, if you enjoyed this video and this recipe, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet and you are looking for recipes that can help you on a weight loss journey. Share any of my videos if you think there's someone out there who would appreciate the content. And hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. As I said, we did a collab on Tuesday that wasn't one of my typical videos, although it did come out at the same time as the tag video as we usually do, Sandy. But anyway, so if you hit the notification bell, you'll be alerted when something out of the ordinary comes up. Also, comment down below if you are a Mediterranean food lover. I know Kat over at Cat on Point, you enjoy some Mediterranean food, so hopefully you're gonna give these a try. So I've been talking long enough, now I need... Okay, hold the phone. I did forget to mention that the recipe for both of these will be linked down below in the description box. You will find them on my blog. Also linked down there are my Amazon storefront, my Fetch rewards, my Built Bar rewards, and my social media. Here's my Instagram if you'd like to follow me over there. And there are 2 Facebook groups that I'm part of. One is mine, Recipes with Roy. The other one is Finding Our Way, W-E-I-G-H. And that one I co-admin with Jennifer Lynn from the Jennifer Lynn channel, as well as Bree Coleman from Balancing Life with Bree. So join us over there for lots of great tips, tricks, recipe support, and people. So now I really am going to exit this video. So until next time, bye.